On the eve of the anniversary, Grayson walked into the hotel hand in hand with his first love. I dialed his number, but it was my 13-year-old son who answered. Dad is having a parent-teacher meeting, and outsiders are not allowed to disturb. The son said coldly, then blocked me. That night, the father and son used family rules as an excuse to impose punishment on me for disrupting the harmony of the household. Locked me on the open-air balcony where the wild wind howled, forcing me to stand all night. This time, I really learned my lesson. I dragged my feverish body and handed over the divorce agreement. I took the initiative to propose a divorce to Grayson. In the study. Upon hearing the word divorce, Grayson didn't even lift his eyelids, remaining focused on his work. I waited for him for an hour. Just as I was about to faint, the man finally spoke. Paisley, just because I punished you by making you face a cold wind, you want to divorce me? You were in the wrong first, shouldn't you be punished? I opened my mouth. For the first time, I restrained the impulse to defend myself. I only said, sign here. Grayson said lightly, the custody of our son belongs to me, you have no objections, right? Seeing me shake my head, Grayson raised his eyebrows in surprise. However, in order to highlight the so-called fairness, the man still called Cooper into the study and asked him, after your parents' divorce, who do you want to be with? Cooper is truly a descendant of Grayson. Not only do they look alike, but even the way he looks at me is strikingly similar, aloof and utterly indifferent. Cooper said, I want Dad, not Mom. In the past, when I heard this sentence, I would definitely lose sleep all night, and Cooper would cry until dawn. However, after what happened last night, my feelings of maternal love for Cooper have long since vanished. For 13 years of marriage, all my thoughts have been devoted to taking care of Grayson and Cooper's daily needs. So much so that there were hardly any personal belongings of his in this home. He finished tidying up in less than 10 minutes. As I dragged my luggage out of the room, Grayson was sitting on the sofa watching the stock market. He said without turning his head, where are you planning to go? I'll have the driver take you. No need. I forced myself to endure the dizziness and discomfort brought on by the high fever, straining to walk toward the door. At that moment, a golf ball flew from the second floor and struck the back of my head hard. The second floor is Cooper's game room. He always practices indoor golf after finishing his homework. Seeing me clutching my head and curling up on the ground, Grayson and Cooper exchanged a knowing glance that said, she's at it again, putting on a show. I lay on the ground, struggling for half an hour. Finally, I crawled out of the Cheen family's gate, drenched in cold sweat, and made my way to the hospital for N4. After my fever broke, I sat drowsily on the bus heading to the outskirts of the city. 2 hours later, I arrived at my grandmother's doorstep. Faced with my sudden appearance, my grandmother, overjoyed, asked nothing at all. While busy gathering firewood and starting the fire, prepare a pot full of taro rice for me. When Cooper was little, he loved to eat taro rice just like I did. Sometimes, when he was too full, he would fuss and insist that I carry him. When he was about 6 or 7 years old, a child from the Cheen family told Cooper that taro was a worthless thing only country folks ate. After that, Cooper no longer allowed me to bring home the taro that my grandmother had personally planted. Seeing that I was eating too quickly, I had to pound my chest and desperately burp. Every line on my grandmother's face is tinged with a smile. To make it easier for me to eat, my grandmother, with her trembling, wrinkled hands, smoothed my messy black hair and wove the favorite braided pigtails of my childhood. That night, after years of insomnia, I had a night full of good dreams. I knew I was finally home. 2 days later, I received a call from Grayson. The man asked me coldly, where is the silk shirt you bought abroad last year hanging? I instinctively informed him of the exact location and suggested that he use the tie placed in the leftmost compartment to match the shirt. The sound of rustling clothes came from Grayson's side. When he spoke again, it was with a somewhat awkward approval. It's not bad, I'll wear this for tonight's dinner party. Pause for a moment, he then said, send me your address, and I will have someone deliver the custom-made jewelry for the anniversary. I refused, saying, no need, my taste is different from Holly's. Holly is Grayson's first love. Ever since she returned to the country to be Grayson's personal secretary. From the grand itinerary to the smallest gift, everything around the man is decided by her. Upon hearing me mention Holly, Grayson's tone turned icy. What are you even worth? How dare you compare yourself to Holly? I chuckled silently. You're right, I don't deserve it. That's why I asked you not to waste good things on me. Grayson was rendered speechless by what I said. Glancing at the clock on the wall, I continued, please have Holly arrange a date for you to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau as soon as possible. Just send me a text message once the date is confirmed, there's no need to call. After saying that, just as I was about to hang up, Grayson changed the subject and said, my son is next to me, he wants to say a few words to you. Without waiting for Cooper to speak, I directly pressed the screen off. Just like that day, Cooper swiftly and decisively blocked me without a word. I put down my phone, took my grandmother's hand, and sat with her to watch the lively Huang Mei opera. A week flew by in the blink of an eye. While waiting for someone at the hotel, I received a call from an unknown number. Cooper is the school's director of education. He said that Cooper got into a fight with his classmates at school. The reason for the dispute was that the other party believed the rumors and, in front of the whole class, asked Cooper about the reasons for his parents' divorce. I said, this is not a rumor, I really did divorce Cooper's father. The custody of the child is not in my hands, please ask the teacher to contact his father to handle this matter. After I finished speaking, the head of the department awkwardly stated that Cooper was only willing to provide my phone number. Therefore, I had to trouble the head of teaching to set the phone to speaker mode. In front of the injured student and his parents, I calmly said to Cooper, you were wrong to hit someone, when you're wrong, you must admit it. This is the principle that you and your father have always believed in, isn't it? Also, whether it's your father or you, please do not call me again, no matter what happens in the future. Cooper, you need to understand that I have no relationship with you anymore. After I finished speaking, I hung up the phone and, while setting my phone to do not disturb, I smiled and waved goodbye to my best friend Hazel and her daughter. When I was pregnant with Cooper, I always imagined that the child in my belly would be a daughter. However, even though things did not go as I wished, I still regarded Cooper as a treasure and raised him with all my heart. Before he turned 6, Cooper would plant little trees in the backyard for the cats that died in cartoons. She would also, after preschool, secretly hide a little red flower and, when I was unprepared, gently place it by my ear. Later, Grayson began to frequently take Cooper in and out of the old house. After turning 8, Cooper no longer cried, nor did he love to laugh. He began to dislike his grandmother's house, with its red bricks and black tiles, finding it inferior to the modern buildings in the city. He said to me, did you grow up in a place like this when you were a child? No wonder Grandma has always looked down on you. The cheesecake that Hazel fed to me brought my thoughts back. Seeing me eat the cake, Hazel said, when you take from others, you become indebted, this time you have no choice but to agree to go watch your goddaughter's competition. I put my arm around Lily's shoulder and said with a smile, don't worry, your godmother will definitely be there. A Friday more than a month later. I ran into Grayson on the school playground. Holly stood next to Grayson. The woman linked her arm through his and greeted me. Paisley, long time no see. Cooper didn't mention you would come. Cooper is the president of the school's sprint club, and there is definitely a competition today. However, I am not here for him. Seeing me ignore Holly, I walked straight towards the viewing platform. Grayson, belatedly realizing, let go of Holly's hand and strode over, sarcastically saying to me, Paisley, didn't you say you were going to cut ties with your son? What are you doing here making a fool of yourself? I couldn't be bothered to waste words with Grayson and simply said, please don't stand next to me, I don't want others to misunderstand. What misunderstanding? The misunderstanding is that we are still husband and wife. Upon hearing this, Grayson was taken aback for a moment, then his expression gradually turned ashen. Paisley, I advise you to know when to stop. I don't understand what the man meant by that. At that moment, I was only focused on excitedly waving at Lily on the runway. Cooper was standing 5 meters away from Lily, and I knew he saw me. The boy clearly thought I was waving at him, otherwise, the disgust and disdain on his face wouldn't have been so apparent. At the sound of the gun, both the men's and women's teams started running simultaneously. Lily was unexpectedly fast. And Cooper, who had always been at the top, for some reason, fell unexpectedly halfway. As soon as the competition ended, Grayson and I both rushed towards the track. Grayson hurried a few steps and quickly reached Cooper's side, seriously asking the school doctor about his son's injuries. The school doctor was about to speak, but Grayson made a gesture for him to wait a moment. The man turned to the side, looking displeased at me standing not far away, my head down as I typed a message. Paisley, what are you still dawdling around for? Can't you see your son is hurt? Grayson's reprimand drew the attention of the surrounding teachers and students. Paisley, what are you still dawdling around for? Can't you see your son is hurt? Grayson's reprimand drew the attention of the surrounding teachers and students. I put down my phone and looked at Cooper, whose lips were a pale white, with a blank expression. The boy's knees were torn and swollen, covered in blood. His left ankle was twisted at an unnatural angle. Cooper reached out to me, instinctively in pain, his eyes looking at me helplessly. I find it a bit funny. What does this have to do with me? As Cooper wrote in his composition last year, he has grown up. No longer needing a mother like me, who can only cook and do laundry at home, mediocre and useless to the point of not being able to play a complete piano piece, to worry about his unnecessary and boring idle thoughts. Under the gaze of everyone, I directly bypassed Cooper and, with a beaming smile, rushed to the women's track to embrace Lily excitedly. Lily, you are truly amazing. Congratulations on winning the silver medal. Let's go, baby, your mom's car is right at the school gate. She said she wants to take us to eat the seafood feast you've been craving the most. As I walked out of the school gate feeling relaxed and happy, Grayson's call came in just as I got into the car. I hadn't planned to answer. But he sent a message to discuss the divorce matters. When we arrived at the dining location, I asked Hazel to take our daughter inside first, and I would come in later. 2 months later, I made the first move to call Grayson. The ringtone rang for only half a second before a man's somewhat exasperated voice came through the phone. Paisley, where are you right now? No matter where I am, you can tell me when you are free to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Grayson fell silent for a moment, his tone deliberately slowing down. You need to come to the hospital first. Cooper is seriously injured and may not be able to compete again. In any case, the doctor has something to discuss with us. Oh, if we can't compete, then we can't compete. There's no need for you to tell me about such a trivial matter. Grayson said incredulously. Paisley, how can you say such a thing? Aren't you still Cooper's mother? I rested my head on the soft cushion of the back seat, calm as water, and said, Grayson, it was you who called Cooper to the study, it was you who wanted him to tell me in person that after the divorce, he didn't want to live with me, this outsider. Why, when it has come to this, do you act as if I am the one who abandoned him? Don't you think it's contradictory and ridiculous for you and your son? The other end of the phone fell into a long silence again. So long that I thought the man was deliberately leaving me hanging. Grayson spoke up once more. In the man's cold and indifferent tone, there was a hint of frustration that was hard to conceal. Paisley, whatever you need, just say it, and I will agree. In exchange, you will come to the hospital to take care of Cooper. You know how busy I am, I can't possibly stay here watching over him all the time. I chuckled softly. My only request has always been the same, to expedite the divorce proceedings with me. As for Cooper, as his ex-wife, I can only suggest that you find him a caregiver as soon as possible. Unknowingly, a certain remark angered Grayson, and from the other end of the phone came the chaotic sound of several items being knocked to the ground. Right after that came the man's furious yet mocking question. Cooper is the child you carried for 10 months, who was finally born after 2 days of difficult labor. Paisley, are you really going to divorce me and make our son a child from a single-parent family? How could that be? I kindly reminded Grayson that a devoted woman, Holly, had been standing next to Cooper, waiting for him to turn around. Holly has always cared for Cooper, and of course, you could say this is love for the person and their surroundings. However, Cooper has always been looking forward to the day you turn Holly into his mother. As the father of the child, you should fulfill this wish for him as soon as possible. Grayson clenched his fist against his forehead. Do you really want to hear your son call another woman mom? I replied without hesitation, 100 willing. 3 years ago, the Meng family went bankrupt abroad, and Holly returned home in a sorry state. Grayson, disregarding everyone's objections, hired Holly as his personal secretary to help manage the core affairs of the group. Last Mother's Day, Cooper ordered 99 flowers, ran to the company to give them to Holly, and skipped class multiple times to have meals with her. In fact, they are the true family. As for me, after coming to terms with reality, I must continue to live and look forward. In the phone, Grayson was unusually chatty, still rambling on about something. But I was too hungry and really didn't want to waste time with him. I said to him impatiently, "Next Monday, if you can't make it to the Civil Affairs Bureau, then we'll meet directly in court." After saying that, I hung up the phone, turned it off, and walked into the dining room. Monday arrived. Grayson still did not show up. So I officially hired a lawyer and entrusted the entire divorce matter to the other party. One weekend evening half a month later. In the fields, wearing a straw hat, I gazed at the sunset for a few seconds, gently patted the girl beside me, and said with a smile, "Lily, Grandma has probably finished cooking, let's go back and eat." Lily responded excitedly with a "good," took my hand, and, holding the freshly picked fruits, led me on a little run. We returned home, laughing and chatting, and pushed open the door. Just as I was about to share the day's accomplishments with my grandmother, who was standing at the door, I noticed that her expression was not quite natural. Following my grandmother's gaze into the room, I belatedly noticed an unexpected guest in the living room. It's Cooper. Grandma hasn't seen Cooper for many years, but every year she uses an old phone, trembling as she carefully writes messages, urging me to send her the new family photo. Therefore, she recognized Cooper. There were some things I had never mentioned to her, but this old man who had lived alone for more than half a century had a heart as clear as water and a mind as bright as a mirror. Hearing me ask her to take Lily to the kitchen to wash the fruit and come out later. The old man nodded sadly, brushed a bit of dust from my cheek, and, stooping, led the girl away. As soon as I walked into the living room, the young man struggled to stand up from the sofa. Looking at his ankle in a cast and the simple luggage by his feet, I softly asked, "What are you doing at my house?" As soon as these words were spoken, the already slightly awkward atmosphere in the space seemed to freeze, becoming even more suffocating. Cooper's fingers unconsciously tugged at the seam of his jeans. Before long, his nails had broken the skin, revealing threads of blood. This is a manifestation of the youth's anxiety and unease. In the past, whenever he exhibited such behavior, I would immediately take his hand, speak to him softly and gently to cheer him up, thus diverting his attention. Cooper waited and waited. Yet, he did not see me, as usual, walking towards him to stop his self-destructive, mechanical behavior. After a long stalemate, the young man turned his face to glare at the shrine beside the television, gritting his teeth as he murmured, "I'm hurt. The doctor said I need your care to get better." What a funny lie that makes people laugh. I sat down on the single sofa and said to him, "I know your dad forced you to come here, don't worry, I won't do as he wishes and make a scene in front of you." Cooper unexpectedly shook his head quickly and said with rare urgency, "It was I who wanted to come." Upon hearing this, I paused for a few seconds and calmly said, "No matter whose idea it was, you should understand that your dad and I have already decided to separate. He wants custody of you, and from now on, you and he will be a real family." Before I could finish my sentence, Cooper suddenly turned his gaze towards me, his youthful, innocent eyes filled with panic and disbelief. "But you are my mom?" Seeing my expressionless face and my silence, he stubbornly frowned and said, "No matter what, legally, I will always be your son. Yes, he is my biological son. I once gave him all the love I could. Unfortunately, he is not worthy of such love at all." Cooper, do you remember last year when I went to your award ceremony at school? How did you introduce me to the teachers back then? That day, when Cooper won the championship in the junior category of the International Mathematical Olympiad and was recognized as the Outstanding Student of the Year. The school, in order to honor him, specifically informed me in advance that on the day of the award ceremony, I would personally go on stage to present the award to my son. In order not to embarrass Cooper, I, who usually dress simply, specially went to a high-end salon and spent several hours getting myself ready. However, just as I stepped into the auditorium for the awards ceremony, a second before I was about to shake hands with Mr. Cooper, the homeroom teacher. Cooper brought Holly over and Holly. When the homeroom teacher looked at me in confusion, the boy looked at me with disdain. Aunt Paisley, please recognize your own identity. You are just our family's cook. I kindly ask you not to dress so gaudily in occasions like this, it's embarrassing. Thus, Holly took my place on the podium, personally presenting the award to Cooper amidst the enduring applause, and embraced him for a close photo. Their group photo still sits prominently on Grayson's desk, in the most noticeable spot. In the living room, Cooper's face visibly grew paler. I continued in a neutral tone, Cooper, I know you have always been ashamed of me, feeling that I am unworthy of being your mother. Since that's the case, I will now officially make it clear to you here. I, Paisley, am not your mother. You, Cooper, are no longer my son. From now on, there will be no relationship between us. After expressing my true thoughts, I stood up, walked straight to the door, leaned against the threshold, and issued an eviction order to Cooper. Don't come back after you leave, this home does not welcome any irrelevant outsiders. After hearing my words, Cooper's fingertips trembled, his fists clenched tightly, and he stood frozen in place, unwilling to move. Seeing this, I strode back to the living room, grabbing his collar with one hand and picking up his luggage with the other, ruthlessly dragging him out. Mom! Wait a minute, my leg. My leg hurts so much. Ignoring the boy's heart-wrenching cries, I straightforwardly pushed him out of the courtyard. As I threw my luggage onto Cooper, Grayson walked out from behind the large banyan tree outside the door, his face serious. The man's voice trembled as he said, Paisley, our son has been having nightmares every day. He really misses you, he really needs you. Can't you let him stay here for a few days? I replied without thinking, no. At that moment, Cooper noticed the direction of the kitchen and secretly peeked at our Lily. The boy pointed at the little girl with indignation and silently asked me, why can she, an outsider, live here while I cannot? Clearly, I am your own son. I looked down at Cooper with a look of annoyance. What do you think you are to compare yourself to my precious goddaughter? Lily can not only live here, but she can stay for as long as she wants. As for you, how many times do I have to say it before you understand? Cooper, I'm telling you for the last time, I don't want you anymore. Since you chose to follow your father, you are no longer my child, Paisley. Cooper stared at me blankly, this boy who had regarded tears as a great humiliation since he was 7, and tears began to uncontrollably swirl in his eyes. After a long silence, Grayson, with eyes full of disappointment, finally couldn't help but murmur to me after helping Cooper up, Paisley, why are you being so heartless to the child? The response to him was the thunderous closing of the estate's main gate. That night, a torrential rainstorm raged. Amidst the flashes of lightning and the rumble of thunder, Grayson's car remained parked on the muddy path, behind the banyan tree. Grandma held up the flashlight, opened the oiled paper umbrella, and wanted to bring Cooper a warm blanket, but I noticed her just in time and gently and patiently escorted her back to her room. The next morning, Grayson, who was usually calm and indifferent, hurriedly knocked on the courtyard door, asking me to take a look at Cooper. He said that Cooper had a high fever in the middle of the night, vomiting and feeling dizzy, very seriously ill. My grandmother has severe hearing loss and cannot hear the knocking on the door. Meanwhile, I put on earplugs for Lily, who is still lost in her dreams, and without a care, I turn over and continue to sleep. After waking up from my nap, I saw that Grayson's car had already left. With a contented smile, I hummed a little tune and continued to linger in Grandma's melon shed with Lily. When she sent the little girl back to school, she was carrying a lot of fruit she had picked herself, happily sharing it with her dormitory friends. A group of little girls who rarely leave the city chirped and chattered like little birds just waking up in the morning. Is this a blueberry? It's so big, much sweeter than the ones bought in the supermarket. My godmother used to be a doctoral student at the agricultural university, and this North American variety of big blueberries is only grown at my great-grandmother's house. No one else has them. Hearing Lily say that, someone looked at me with envious admiration and asked if next time Lily went out to play, could she take them along too? With my affirmative answer, the little girls cheered joyfully, raising their arms in excitement. Stepping out of the girls' dormitory, I stood in front of the corridor bathed in the red glow of the sunset, while Cooper gazed at the vast sky that he hadn't paid attention to in a long time. I can't remember the last time I heard the title of a doctoral student from the agricultural university. 13 years ago, I was still a graduate student who had not yet left the ivory tower. Attending classes, conducting research, and writing papers were my entire life, until I unexpectedly became pregnant with Cooper. I never intended to have him. But Grayson acted as if this child didn't exist, clinging to me for what felt like an eternity, as if he would rather die. Kneeling to propose, with a diamond ring, I clumsily married into a wealthy family. At first, Grayson promised me that once the child grew a little older, I would be able to finish my graduate studies and then choose to do what I truly wanted. Day by day, year by year, in the blink of an eye, Cooper had reached the age to start elementary school. When I expressed my desire to return to my studies, the Cheen family said that Cooper cannot have a mother who deals with mud every day like a village woman. Even Cooper said, "Mom, Grandma said that marrying Dad is the greatest blessing you've earned in your lifetime, so you shouldn't go looking for trouble and tarnish the Cheen family's name." A sudden ring brought my thoughts back. Seeing the caller ID was Grayson, I maintained my composure and chose to block the number. I have already instructed my lawyer to submit the divorce application to the court and have informed Grayson to communicate directly with my lawyer regarding any matters. He can choose to ignore my words, and I can naturally block him at will. A typhoon in September blew down the long-neglected roof of my grandmother's side room. As a result, I discussed with her the idea of reinforcing and rebuilding the entire house. Before the reconstruction, I had to pack some important items and put them in storage. So I pushed open the room where my parents once lived. Grandma occasionally comes in with a feather duster to give it a sweep, so there isn't much dust inside. After tidying up for a while, I saw Mr. Rabbit. As I smiled slightly and turned to call for Grandma, a tall, warm male chest blocked my view. "The doll you are holding feels so familiar." Hearing Grayson's low, magnetic voice, the smile on my face instantly faded. I asked him, "Grayson, do you really have to push me to the point of calling the police on you for disturbing the peace before you will truly disappear from my sight?" The overly blunt words of disdain caused the usually aloof and self-possessed man to show an expression of embarrassment that no one had ever seen before. The Adam's apple moved slightly as Grayson said in a low tone, "Paisley, I know you hate me right now, so you don't want to see me at all. However, we have been married for 13 years after all, and I hope you can give me a chance to explain the misunderstanding." I looked at him coldly. "There is no misunderstanding between us." "Yes." I had never seen Grayson so flustered. He stammered, "That day you saw me in the hotel lobby, walking in with Holly, why didn't you just call out to me?" "Paisley, as long as you call me, you will know that I went to the hotel with Holly just to meet a client who was staying there. If you still don't believe me, I can have someone find the surveillance footage from that day for you to see." As he spoke, Grayson really took out his phone, preparing to call the hotel staff. However, no need. It's not important. "What did you say?" I said, "How you are with Holly is between you and her. You don't need to explain this to me, because I don't care at all." I wasn't lying to Grayson. In fact, the divorce agreement I had prepared was already printed before I witnessed him entering the hotel with Holly. I originally planned to bring up the divorce after celebrating our 13th wedding anniversary. But plans can't keep up with changes. Grayson stared at me blankly for a while, hesitatingly saying, "It's important, Paisley, it's very important. You can't wrongfully accuse me." Grayson actually knows in his heart whether it is unjust or not. However, seeing that I was unwilling to get entangled with him and was preparing to leave, the man still stubbornly held on to my wrist. "Wife, I really know I was wrong. I have been on my way here." As he spoke, a flicker of struggle passed through Grayson's eyes, before he continued, "Fire Holly. Paisley, you know my character, I have never asked anyone for anything in my life, not even my parents. But standing here today, I beg you to give me one last chance to make things right. We won't get a divorce, okay?" Looking into Grayson's pleading eyes, my gaze remained as calm as an ancient well. "Grayson, I really don't love you anymore, so let's end it here." I brushed aside the man's hand, which had lost all strength in a moment of distraction. I bypassed him and walked out of the room. Outside the room stood a gloomy boy who seemed to be carved from the same mold as Grayson. He stared foolishly at Mr. Rabbit in my hand, and before long, his eyes were red. He pointed at Mr. Rabbit and said, "This was sewn for me by Grandma, I thought I had accidentally lost it." Hearing this, I shook my head at him, "It's not a mistake. Cooper, this is what you threw in the trash when you were 8 years old. Mr. Rabbit is a gift that my mother painstakingly sewed for Cooper's 3rd birthday, enduring the torment of cancer with every stitch. When Cooper was little and afraid to sleep alone, as long as Mr. Rabbit was there, he could transform into a brave little warrior. 5-year-old Cooper would cry and plead with his mother to quickly save poor Mr. Rabbit when cotton would leak out of Mr. Rabbit's ears. But 8-year-old Cooper could be affected by Holly's remark during her visit home, "Boys your age abroad wouldn't like such childish dolls," and secretly tore Mr. Rabbit apart, with an innocent look, throwing him to the very bottom of the trash can. In order to find Mr. Rabbit, I had no choice but to run around all the nearby garbage disposal sites like a madman. One bag after another, I tore open all the garbage bags visible before me, gagging and trembling as I rummaged through them for an entire afternoon. I finally managed to recover the shattered remnants of my mother's belongings. That afternoon, I lost control of my emotions and, with red eyes, slapped Cooper's bottom with my hand, punishing him to stand in the corner for 10 minutes. After that, Cooper no longer called me Mom. Years later, Cooper looked at Mr. Bunny, whom he had once discarded, with red-rimmed eyes, and said to me in a tearful voice, "Mom, this is what Grandma gave me. Please give it back to me. I haven't been able to sleep lately, and I really need it." Cooper reached out his hand, wanting to touch Mr. Rabbit, but I used all my strength and ruthlessly pushed him to the ground, despite his recent recovery from illness. I looked coldly at the pale-faced boy, who gazed up at me with a helpless expression, and said, "Don't touch my mother's belongings with your dirty hands." As soon as the words fell, a gasp of surprise from Holly could be heard not far away. The uninvited woman looked at Cooper with a pained expression, then sternly questioned me, "Paisley, have you lost your mind? Just because Yu Hang doesn't want you, you treat his son like this?" I know that Grayson is standing right behind me. Holly's words are completely meant to sow discord. I lowered my head and couldn't help but laugh out loud. At this point, this woman still thought she was right, spreading rumors. I walked up to Holly and slapped her without saying a word. Holly was taken aback for a moment, and just as she was about to speak, I suddenly slapped her again. Finally coming to her senses, Holly was so angry that tears filled her eyes, and she was ready to lash out at me, but Grayson didn't give her that chance. I heard Grayson standing in the middle, trying to calm me down and telling me not to get too worked up. Holly's face changed like a revolving lantern, alternating between blue and red, constantly shifting. "Grayson, the one who was hit is me, Holly. Not her, Paisley." Faced with the woman's uncontrollable shouting, Grayson looked pained and said with a dark expression, "It was my order to fire you, it has nothing to do with Paisley. If there's nothing else, you can leave quickly." Holly stared in disbelief, crying out, "This woman not only hit me, but she also pushed your son. Are you blind, Grayson?" Hearing this, Cooper slowly stood up from the ground, supporting himself against the wall. I said in a muffled voice, "It doesn't matter about my mom, it's my own fault for carelessly falling down." Holly's face was as pale as paper, and she stumbled backward. "Bastard, Grayson, not only are you a bastard, but the son you raised is no good either." After Holly ran away with her tear-streaked makeup, both Grayson and Cooper hesitated to speak, looking at me with hopeful eyes. I know what they are thinking. They believe that without Holly as the catalyst, I will quickly soften my heart as always, return to the family, and continue to strive to be a good wife and a good mother. Sure enough, just as I expected, I had barely taken 2 steps forward when Grayson's insistent voice came from behind. "Paisley, Cooper and I drove for 2 hours to get here this morning, and we haven't eaten anything. Actually, I don't mind, it's just Cooper. He's still in the growing stage, can you get him a bowl of noodles?" I thought for a moment and said, "You all wait outside the gate, I'll bring some food over." After speaking, I did not walk towards the nearest kitchen, but instead took Mr. Rabbit back to the room. I opened the first drawer of the vanity. I took out a document I had been preparing for a long time. 2 minutes later, I handed this document, along with a bag of bread, to Cooper. I told Grayson and Cooper, I have consulted a lawyer. It is currently very difficult to formally sever the mother-son relationship through legal procedures in this country. But it doesn't matter. As long as Cooper signs this contract, there will no longer be any obligation of care between him and me. Since I chose to abandon Cooper, I naturally won't let him bear the responsibility of taking care of me for 100 years. This agreement contract is entirely to protect Cooper's interests. The young boy suddenly knelt before me with red eyes, tugging at my pant leg, crying and gasping for breath as he pleaded for my forgiveness. Mom, I don't want to sever ties with you. Without your care, I'm just a useless person in life. I can't live without you, Mom, boo-hoo, please don't abandon me. Grayson looked at me with hollow eyes. That gaze seemed to be looking at someone he had never known. Cooper pleaded for a long time, but I remained unmoved. The terrified, crying boy had no choice but to turn to his father and scream with all his heart, Dad. Didn't you say that Mom was just angry and said those hurtful things in the heat of the moment? You lied to me. You lied to me. Please help me tell Mom. Tell her that her son has realized his mistake and that I will definitely be obedient from now on. Grayson turned to the side, covering his eyes, and after a long while, he finally managed to steady his mind and turned back to meet my gaze. Paisley. I coldly interrupted him, take Cooper back, and don't show up again. Having said that, I ignored the pain-filled eyes of Grayson and Cooper and slowly closed the wooden courtyard door. Back in the living room, Grandma was sitting in a sunny corner, mending the battered Mr. Rabbit with her reading glasses on. I poured 2 cups of tea, one for my grandmother and one for myself, who was opening the laptop and getting ready to work. 5 months after the divorce. I went to school to pick up Hazel's daughter while she was busy working overtime. As soon as Lily got into the car, she started gossiping with me about the major events that had recently happened at school. She said that last Monday, a boy named Cooper from the 3rd-year Qingzhou class jumped off the 4th floor during evening study after arguing with his alcoholic father. He is still being observed in the intensive care unit, and it's uncertain whether he will pull through. Due to this matter, the school specifically held lectures on adolescent mental health, which took up several of her lunchtime piano classes. After listening to the girl's innocent complaints, I fell silent for a moment and gently tucked the stray hair from her forehead behind her ear. I said, we Lily can't be as foolish as that boy. Life is still long, and even if we make mistakes, as long as we have the courage to start over, there's no obstacle we can't overcome. After Lily nodded in a daze, she linked her arm with mine and said playfully, with Mom and Godmother's protection, I'm not afraid of anything. That's right, go ahead, what do you want to eat? We'll set off right now. The neon streetlights flickered incessantly on both sides of the road as I gripped the steering wheel, slowly guiding the silver sedan into the flow of traffic. The road has always been beneath our feet. As long as there is determination, one can reach anywhere.